The diner air hung thick with the ghosts of stale coffee and something acrid, exhaust fumes or ancient fry oil perhaps. Lily, a wisp of a girl, could have vanished behind the sprawling plastic menu. Her finger traced the chipped edge of the laminated breakfast special, while her stomach churned with a familiar anxious dread. This wasn't merely a diner. It was the diner. The one her father railed against for its din and its unsavory types. To Lily, unsavory types were the formidable cluster of leather and chrome in the corner booth. Their laughter, a deep resonant rumble, usually sent her scurrying. Not today. Today, she had a mission. She dismounted the slick red vinyl seat, her small sneakers whispering on the checkered linoleum. Each step was a silent struggle against the impulse to retreat, to vanish beneath the table until her father arrived. Her heart hammered a frantic rhythm, a drumbeat of sheer terror. The men were titans, their beards impressive, their tattoos a vibrant tapestry of dragons and skulls. She pictured them roaring down highways, boundless and brave. That's what she craved. Reaching their booth, she felt the air around them crackle with an energy that made her tremble. One, a man with a bandana and a grizzly patch on his cut, looked up. His eyes, surprisingly soft beneath a bushy brow, met hers. The laughter subsided, replaced by a curious hush. Lily swallowed, her mouth suddenly parched. Her voice, when it came, was a mere rustle, a tiny leaf in a gale. "Excuse me?" Grizzly leaned forward, his massive frame creaking the leather. "Well, hello there, little darling. What can we do for you?" His voice was gravelly yet kind. She clutched the hem of her faded blue dress. Can you teach me to be brave like you?" The ensuing silence felt heavier than before, broken only by the distant clatter of kitchen dishes. The other bikers exchanged glances, a slow ripple of surprise passing through their ranks. Grizzly's expression softened further, a hint of something unreadable in his gaze. "Brave, huh?" he finally said, his eyes steady on hers. "Why do you need to be brave, little one?" The question unspooled the tight coil of fear within her, replacing it with a desperate need to articulate. The words tumbled out, a frantic cascade of anxieties. "I'm scared of everything," she confessed, her voice gaining strength, fueled by the urgency of her truth. "School, the bullies who call me Mouse, even my own shadow sometimes, when it looks too big. I heard bikers are the bravest people. They're not scared of anything." Another man, Viper, emblazoned on his jacket, leaned forward, his expression thoughtful. "Not scared of anything, huh? That's a mighty big claim, little sister." Grizzly nodded slowly. "Everyone's scared of something, kiddo. But brave ain't about not being scared. It's about doing what you gotta do, even when you are." He looked at his companions, a silent communication passing between them. Then he turned back to Lily, a gentle smile spreading across his face. "Tell you what, little one, how about you pull up a chair? We can talk about bravery over some pancakes." What happened next became local legend, then a viral sensation. News of the little girl and the Hells Angels spread like wildfire. The bikers, unexpectedly touched by her raw honesty, made an unusual decision. They adopted Lily as their club's little sister. Her first lesson was self-defense, taught in the dusty oil-scented garage behind Grizzly's house. Viper, surprisingly nimble for his size, demonstrated basic blocks and evasions. Lily, initially hesitant, flinched with every shouted instruction. But with each repetition, each gentle correction, a flicker of something new ignited within her. She learned to anchor her feet, to plant her stance, to bellow "no!" with a power she hadn't known she possessed. The first time she managed a clean block, deflecting Viper's outstretched arm. A genuine smile blossomed on her face. A rare sight for those who knew her. Confidence-building excursions followed. Not astride a roaring Harley, not yet. Instead, they led her to quiet parks, teaching her to conquer a bicycle without training wheels, cheering her as she wobbled, then soared. They visited a local animal shelter, encouraging her to pet the shaggiest, most imposing dog, helping her surmount her fear of barking. Each small victory was met with roars of approval and pats on the head, making her feel seen and valued for the first time. The most public, and perhaps most impactful, act unfolded on a Tuesday morning. Lily stood outside the school gates, clutching her backpack, the familiar dread a cold knot in her stomach. Then, the rumble began. A low, vibrating growl that turned heads and sent whispers rippling through the gathered students. 6 Harleys, gleaming chrome and polished black, pulled to the curb. Grizzly, Viper, and 4 other members dismounted, their presence a formidable wall of leather and resolve. Lily's eyes widened. She had known they were coming, but seeing them, an actual phalanx of bikers, striding towards her, was an indelible sight. The bullies, usually so boisterous, receded, their taunts silenced by the sheer intimidation of the group. Grizzly offered her his arm, a gentle giant, and she took it, her small hand swallowed in his massive grip. Together, they walked, down the asphalt path, through the main doors, and into the bustling hallway. The usual cacophony of lockers slamming and adolescent chatter evaporated, replaced by an awed silence. Students stared, teachers gaped. Lily, buoyed by their protective presence, walked with her head a little higher, her shoulders a little straighter. The fear was still there, a tiny tremor in her stomach, but it was overshadowed by a burgeoning warmth, a feeling of absolute, unshakable support. A video of that walk went viral. Then another, showing her learning to block. Then another, of her confidently petting a Rottweiler. Over the next few months, the transformation was incredible. Lily, once a shy, cowering girl, became a beacon of quiet strength. She still preferred books to boisterous games, but she no longer hid. Her voice, once a whisper, held a clear, firm tone when she spoke. She stood up to the bullies, not with aggression, but with a calm, unwavering gaze and the learned ability to articulate her boundaries. The videos, documenting her journey from terrified mouse to confident little sister, inspired millions worldwide, a testament to the quietest wish and the unexpected kindness of strangers. A promise from the hounds. The crisp autumn air, often a source of apprehension for Lily, now carried the grounding sense of burning leaves and faint exhaust, a fragrance of transition, of forward motion, and, most significantly, of the hounds. A month had passed since Grizzly's gravelly voice had reshaped her understanding of courage, since the deep thrum of their engines had become a comforting rhythm rather than an ominous rumble. Viral videos of Lily's burgeoning self-assurance had exploded across screens, each clip garnering millions of views. Yet for her, the profoundest shift was internal. The world still presented its sharp edges, but she now possessed a quiet intuition for navigating them. One blustery Saturday morning, the hounds converged at their usual diner, their bikes' chrome shimmering dully beneath a pale sun. Lily, no longer a white-knuckled passenger clinging to Grizzly's massive Harley, dismounted her own newly acquired, albeit diminutive, dirt bike. It was a gift from Sparky, who had patiently tutored her through the basics, and she defiantly painted it a vibrant purple, a splash of audacious color, amidst her mentor's muted grays and blacks. Today, though, felt different. The customary boisterous greetings were hushed, replaced by an unsettling current of concern rippling through the group. Grizzly, his brow more deeply furrowed than usual, motioned for Lily to slide into the worn booth beside him. The familiar aroma of stale coffee and sizzling bacon filled the air, a small comfort. "Lilybug," he began, his voice surprisingly gentle. "There's something we got to talk about." Her small heart gave a nervous flutter. She'd learned to distinguish fear from mere anticipation, but the sensation was new, weighty. Is everything okay?" Grizzly exchanged a glance with Ratchet, who sat opposite them, meticulously polishing his spectacles with a worn rag. "Mostly, kiddo," Ratchet finally offered, his voice a low, steady hum. "But the attention is drawing some unwelcome eyes." Grizzly leaned forward, his massive frame seeming to almost engulf the table. "Remember what we told you about the world having different kinds of brave and different kinds of scary?" Lily nodded, picturing the school bullies, now a fading memory, thanks to the hound's silent, imposing presence. "Well, sometimes when you shine too bright, other shadows come out to play." He explained that her online notoriety had attracted the attention of a rival biker gang, the Vipers. Unlike the hounds, whose formidable reputation was built on a gruff code of honor, the Vipers were infamous for their ruthlessness and illicit dealings. "They see you, Lily, and they see the hounds, and they see an opportunity to stir up trouble, to try and make us look weak." A cold knot tightened in Lily's stomach. This wasn't about playground taunts or navigating crowded hallways. This felt vast, more perilous. "We're not scared of them," Sparky interjected, his customary easy grin replaced by a steely glint in his eyes. "But we're worried about you. They might try to use you to get to us." Lily met each of their gazes, etched with a blend of determination and apprehension. These were the men who had unveiled her inner strength, who had taught her to confront fear head-on. Now, they confronted a different brand of fear. A fear for her. What can we do?" she whispered, her voice barely audible above the diner's clatter. Grizzly reached across and gently took her hand, his calloused thumb stroking her knuckles. "We protect our own, Lily. That's a promise. But you gotta understand, things are gonna be a little different for a while. You won't be alone. Ever. One of us will always be with you, whether you're at school, at home, even if you're just walking to the corner store," he continued, his voice firm but reassuring. "And you need to promise us something too. No matter what, you stay close. You don't wander off. You don't talk to strangers, especially if they try to ask about us or, what we do. And if anyone from the Vipers tries to approach you, you tell us immediately. No hesitation." Lily looked down at their clasped hands, feeling the weight of the promise, the enormity of the potential danger. The bravery she had so carefully cultivated felt fragile in the face of this new threat. Yet, meeting Grizzly's unwavering gaze, she saw not just concern, but absolute resolve. She was not alone. "I promise," she said, her voice stronger than she anticipated, a flicker of that hard-won courage igniting within her. "I promise to be careful, and I promise to tell you everything." A collective exhalation of relief seemed to sweep through the hounds. Grizzly squeezed her hand. "Good, Lilybug. That's our girl." As the diner's bell jingled with the entrance of new patrons, the hounds began strategizing, their voices a low murmur, their plans forming like a protective barrier around Lily. The world, it seemed, had expanded beyond her personal anxieties, revealing a larger, more intricate landscape of challenges. But with the hounds, she knew, she wouldn't merely survive. She would continue to learn, to grow, and to face whatever came next, her head held high. The promise made that day was not just a vow of protection, but a pact of ongoing development, a testament to the unexpected bonds that had transformed a timid girl into a quietly formidable individual. The milkshake mission. The late afternoon sun, typically a gentle balm, now pressed on Lily like an interrogation lamp, pinning her to the hound's clubhouse couch. Her phone, usually a vibrant conduit to a universe of fleeting likes, lay heavy and inert in her lap. Opposite her, Bull's rhythmic rasp of polishing chrome exhaust pipes created a counterpoint to the anxious thrumming in her chest. Over recent weeks, the hound's clubhouse had morphed from a haven into a stronghold, every pane reinforced, every entrance triple-bolted. The constant presence of a dozen burly bikers, once a comfort, now felt like a suffocating enclosure. "Still picking at that, kid?" Bull rumbled, a gruff gentleness in his low growl as he gestured with a rag at the loose seam on her jeans. "Overthinking. I miss it," Lily whispered, her gaze drifting to the reinforced window, beyond which lay the tantalizing world outside. Going out, seeing things, even just the park. Since the Viper threat emerged, her world had shrunk to these four walls and the occasional escorted trip to school. The thrill of viral fame had curdled, replaced by a dull ache of captivity. Bull set down the pipe, a flicker of understanding in his eyes. "We get it, darling. But the Vipers aren't playing fair. We have to be smart." Just then, a ripple of movement presaged Dagger, the hound's president, striding in, his face etched with a familiar blend of resolve and fatigue. He raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. "All right, listen up. Intel's come in. The Vipers are stretched thin, running a new distribution route through the old industrial district. That gives us an opening." Lily's heart gave a hopeful flutter. An opening. She dared to imagine a world beyond this cage. "Now, the old diner on Elm Street, Pop's Place. It's a neutral zone, always has been. But it's also a blind spot in their patrols right now," Dagger continued, his gaze sweeping over the assembled hounds. "We need to send a message. A visible presence, not an escalation. Something that shows we're still here, still active, without shedding blood." A mischievous glint animated Bull's eyes. "A message, huh? What kind?" Dagger's lips curved into a rare, slight smile. "A very specific kind, one that requires a certain delicacy and a taste for chocolate milkshakes." A ripple of confusion went through the hounds. chocolate milkshakes. This was hardly their usual brand of intimidation. "Lily, you listening?" Dagger asked, his eyes locking onto hers. Lily, who had been engrossed, nodded vigorously. This was it. A chance to contribute, to break free from the gilded cage. "We need someone to go to Pop's place," Dagger explained, his voice softening slightly. "Order a chocolate milkshake, sit there, visible, for 20 minutes, and then leave. No fuss, no trouble. Just a statement." Bull's eyes widened. "You're not suggesting—" "I am," Dagger affirmed, his gaze unwavering on Lily. "It has to be her. It's her fame, her face that makes the statement. It shows the Vipers we're not hiding. We're not cowering. And it shows them we're protecting what's ours, openly." A shiver of apprehension traced Lily's spine, instantly followed by a surge of excitement. The thought of stepping out into the unknown, even with the hounds as backup, was terrifying. Yet the prospect of being useful, of being brave for a purpose, was exhilarating. "I'll do it," Lily said, her voice stronger than she expected. A chorus of grumbles rose from the hounds. "Too risky, Dagger." "She's a kid. Let one of us go." Dagger held up a hand. "She's not alone. Bull, Bones, you're with her. Low profile, separate vehicles. You're her shadows, not her escorts. No bikes near the diner. Blend in. And no heroics. If there's trouble, you extract her. You don't engage unless absolutely necessary." The plan unfolded meticulously. Bull and Bones, disguised in civilian clothes, would scout the area around Pop's place. Lily, in a nondescript hoodie and jeans, would be dropped a block away. She would enter the diner alone, order her milkshake, and sit by the window. The hounds would maintain a discreet watch from a distance, a network of eyes and ears blanketing the block. As the designated time neared, Lily's stomach twisted into knots. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat of dread and anticipation. Bull, sensing her trepidation, placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Remember what we taught you, kid. Awareness. Head up. Eyes moving. You got this." Stepping out of the hound's borrowed sedan, the late afternoon air felt crisp and alive against her face. The distant hum of traffic, the chatter of passers-by, sensory details she'd nearly forgotten. Pop's place, a neon beacon in the fading light, seemed to draw her forward. The bell above the diner door jingled cheerfully as she entered, a stark contrast to the coiled tension in her gut. The aroma of frying onions and sweet syrup perfumed the air. She slid into a booth by the window, her gaze subtly sweeping across the other patrons. A couple sharing a sundae, an elderly man immersed in a newspaper, a teenager hunched over his phone. Nothing seemed out of place. "What can I get for you, honey?" a cheerful waitress asked, her pen poised. "A chocolate milkshake, please," Lily managed, her voice a little shaky. The minutes that followed stretched into an eternity. Each sip of the impossibly thick, sweet milkshake felt like a small triumph. She kept her eyes in motion, scanning the street outside, then the other diners. She spotted Bull, disguised in a baseball cap and sunglasses, casually leaning against a lamppost across the street, pretending to read a flyer. Bones was a shadowy figure in a parked car down the block. A sense of pride blossomed within her. She was doing it. She was brave. Then a black sedan, sleek and menacing, idled slowly past the diner. The tinted window rolled down a fraction, revealing a pair of cold, assessing eyes. The Viper. He held her gaze for a beat too long, a silent challenge, a chilling acknowledgement. Lily felt a tremor of fear, but she didn't flinch. She met his stare, a tiny defiant spark in her eyes. The car eventually moved on, leaving an unsettling stillness in its wake. 20 minutes. The timer on her phone buzzed softly. She finished the last of her milkshake, leaving a faint mustache on her upper lip. As she walked out of Pop's place, the setting sun cast long, dramatic shadows. The world felt bigger, sharper, more real. The threat hadn't vanished, but she had faced it, head on, with a chocolate milkshake and a steady gaze. She had sent her own message, and she had never felt more alive. Learning to stand tall. The diner's fluorescent hum still vibrated in Lily's ears, a sharp contrast to the surging pulse in her own veins. She'd done it. The milkshake, the Viper, the terrifying, exhilarating act of rebellion. Yet, as she sat opposite Dagger in the Hound's clubhouse, the lingering sweetness of chocolate on her tongue, an unsettling question pricked at her. "What now?" she murmured, her voice a fragile whisper against the low growl of idling bikes outside. Dagger, his face a landscape of weathered lines and quiet intensity, leaned forward. Now, little sister, you learn to stand strong. He gestured toward a battered leather-bound book on the table between them. This is a guide, not to streets, but to yourself. Hesitantly, Lily took it. The cover bore the scars of countless openings, its pages soft with use. It wasn't a storybook, but a self-defense manual, its stark diagrams of blocks and strikes possessing an almost brutal clarity. But I don't want to hurt anyone, she confessed, her fingers tracing a particularly aggressive stance. Courage isn't about desiring to inflict pain, Dagger corrected, his voice surprisingly gentle. It's about knowing you possess the power to protect yourself, so you never have to. It's about forging your own path without fear. He paused, his gaze softening. We don't wish for you to become one of us, Lily. We wish for you to become more truly yourself. The ensuing weeks blurred into a focused dance of motion. Mornings no longer dawned with cartoons, but with stretches and shadow, boxing in the clubhouse's emptied garage. Dagger, unexpectedly patient, demonstrated each movement with a silent grace that belied his formidable build. He taught her to redistribute her weight, to locate her core, to channel her nervous energy into controlled force. Patch, the hound's burly, tattooed enforcer, became her sparring partner, his feigned attacks slow and deliberate, designed to cultivate her confidence rather than intimidate. Lily discovered a strange rhythm in the repetitive drills. Initial awkwardness yielded to a burgeoning fluidity. A jab, a block, a kick. Each motion a small triumph over her inherent timidity. Her muscles ached, a new and unfamiliar sensation. But with it came a nascent strength she hadn't known she possessed. She even unearthed the surprising power of her own voice, learning to unleash a defiant "Stop!" with enough conviction to make even Patch flinch. One afternoon, Dagger led her into a small, dust-laden room at the back of the clubhouse. It was cluttered with old trophies, faded photographs, and a single, heavy punching bag suspended from the ceiling. This, he announced, handing her a pair of surprisingly well-fitting gloves, is where you learn to hit back. Lily eyed the formidable canvas cylinder, her stomach fluttered. I don't know if I can. You don't have to hit hard, Dagger assured her, adjusting her stance. You just have to connect. Her first punch was a pathetic tap, more a brush than a strike. The bag barely shivered. Dagger didn't laugh. He simply nodded, encouraging her. Again, feel the connection. From your feet, through your hips, into your fist. She struck it again, and again. Her knuckles stung. Her breath came in ragged gasps. But with each impact, a tiny spark ignited within her. Not exactly anger, but a release. A primal assertion of her presence. The thud of leather on canvas became a steady pulse, a rhythm of burgeoning defiance. One evening, after a particularly grueling session, Lily overheard a hushed conversation between Dagger and a few hounds. The vipers are growing bolder, one worried voice murmured. They're encroaching on our territory, probing our defenses. Dagger's reply was clipped, decisive. Then we'll show them we're unyielding. And Lily, she's part of that message now. A cold dread seeped into Lily's bones. Her newfound confidence, hard-won and fragile, suddenly felt woefully insufficient. She could pummel a punching bag? Yes, but confront a viper? The sneering face from the diner flashed in her mind. The next day, Dagger surprised her with a fresh challenge. We're taking a ride, he declared, his eyes gleaming with an unreadable blend of excitement and gravity. You're riding with me. He led her to his custom chopper, a metallic beast of chrome and black leather. It was larger, more imposing than any bike she'd ridden before. Lily swallowed hard. She'd grown accustomed to the road beneath her, the wind in her hair. But this felt different. This felt like a declaration. As she settled onto the passenger seat, Dagger handed her a new helmet, sleek and unexpectedly light. Today, Lily, he said, his voice cutting through the throaty rumble of the engine, we'll ride through the heart of their domain. And you, little sister, will ride with your head held high. The journey was a sensory maelstrom. The engine's roar vibrated through her bones, the wind lashed at her clothes, and the world dissolved into a kaleidoscope of motion. She gripped Dagger's waist, her knuckles white, but this time, fear wasn't her sole companion. A thrill, sharp and exhilarating, pierced through her apprehension. They passed familiar streets, but she saw them now through a new lens. The accustomed storefronts, the bustling sidewalks, all felt charged with an unspoken tension. She observed the subtle shifts in people's expressions as they recognized Dagger's bike, saw the quick glances, the hushed whispers. Then she saw them. A cluster of vipers, lounging outside a grimy bar, their colors stark and aggressive. One, a tall man with a prominent scar bisecting his eyebrow, met her gaze. For a fleeting instant, the old terror threatened to engulf her. But then Dagger's words echoed in her mind. "Stand strong." She didn't flinch. She didn't avert her eyes. Instead, she lifted her chin, meeting his stare with a steady, unwavering resolve. A tiny, almost imperceptible nod passed between her and Dagger, a silent acknowledgement of her defiance. The viper's sneer faltered, replaced by a flicker of surprise. As they rode past, Lily turned back for one last look. The viper was still watching, but something in his posture had shifted. He hadn't expected her to meet his gaze. He hadn't expected her to stand tall. And in that moment, Lily realized the engine's roar wasn't just a sound, it was a pronouncement. And she, the shy girl who had once been afraid of her own shadow, was now inextricably part of it. Rides and ripples. Dagger's custom dyna ripped through the twilight, its roar a defiant symphony vibrating through the soles of Lily's boots. The wind, still thick with the ghosts of exhaust and damp earth, lashed at her hair beneath her helmet, a wild caress that stoked the fire in her chest. Their ride through Viper territory had transcended a mere joyride. It was a gauntlet thrown, a silent declaration. The Viper's sustained gaze had been a crucible, and Lily had emerged unburnt, holding his stare with an unyielding resolve she hadn't known she possessed until that moment. Back at the Hounds Clubhouse, the air throbbed with a different kind of energy. The usual cacophony of laughter and clinking glasses had receded, replaced by a low hum of anticipation. Patch, ever perceptive, met her at the garage entrance. His eyes, typically crinkling with good humor, now held a laser focus. "You held your own out there, little sister," he rumbled, his voice a low growl, as he unlatched her helmet. Her hair, a tangled cascade, tumbled around her shoulders. "Saw the look on your face. You even surprised Dagger." Dagger, already dismounted and meticulously wiping down his bike, grunted assent. "She's got grit," he conceded, the corner of his mouth twitching upwards almost imperceptibly. "More than I gave her credit for, even with all the training." A flush, warm and spreading like wildfire, crept up Lily's neck. Not embarrassment, but pure pride. It was different, she admitted, her voice still a whisper of breathlessness from the ride. Seeing them, knowing they watched, but not feeling diminished. A ripple of hushed conversations swept through the hounds gathered in the main hall. The ride, predictably, had captivated their attention. Whispers of the Viper's potential retort were already circulating. Reaper, the hound's president, a man whose presence could command an arena, stood by the roaring fireplace, his features etched in a thoughtful frown. He caught Lily's eye, a slow, deliberate nod, conveying his approval. "That stunt you pulled, Lilybug, it certainly got their attention." Reaper's voice resonated, deep and powerful. "But attention cuts both ways. They'll be looking to respond." True to Reaper's prognostication, the Viper's retort arrived swiftly and savagely. The next morning, a local diner, a hound's haunt, lay desecrated, its windows shattered, its brick facade defaced with crude Viper insignia. The message was stark, provocative, and brazenly public. A serpent of dread coiled in Lily's gut. This was no longer a game. The stakes had escalated. Later that week, as Lily wrestled with homework at a quiet corner table in the clubhouse, the TV blared a local news report. The reporter, grim-faced, spoke of escalating tensions between the rival gangs, highlighting the diner incident and even flashing a blurry, zoomed-in photograph of Lily on Dagger's bike, her helmeted head starkly visible. The reporter speculated about the new face fanning the flames of conflict. Panic, icy and sharp, threatened to engulf her. Her private struggle had been thrust into the public eye, her stomach twisted into a knot of apprehension. She slammed her book shut, the sound echoing in the sudden quiet of the clubhouse. Reaper, who had observed her from across the room, approached, his eyes holding a profound understanding. "They're trying to unnerve you, little sister," he said, his voice a calm, steadying anchor. "And us." But we don't shatter easily. Lily looked up, her gaze locking with his. But it's because of me, isn't it? This is getting worse because of me. Reaper knelt beside her, his large hand settling gently on her shoulder. No, this has been simmering for a long time. You just nudge the kettle closer to a boil. And sometimes that's precisely what needs to happen. To show them we're not afraid of a little steam. He paused, his gaze searching hers. But we need to be shrewd. And you, Lily, you've got to be shrewder than them. You've got to wield that courage you've unearthed, not just in a skirmish, but in your mind. The ensuing days blurred into a heightened state of vigilance. The hounds fortified their defenses, patrols intensified, and a subtle tension hummed in the air. Yet, amidst the burgeoning threat, Lily discovered an unexpected wellspring of purpose. She intensified her training with Patch, her movements growing sharper, more graceful. She devoured Dagger's manual, not merely for its self-defense techniques, but for the philosophical bedrock of strength and resilience it offered. One afternoon, as she honed her blocks and strikes in the garage, a news alert flashed across the big screen TV. Another incident. A minor clash between hounds and vipers at a gas station on the town's periphery. No serious injuries, but the message was unmistakable. The vipers were encroaching. Lily paused, her breath catching. She felt the fear coil within her gut, a familiar serpent, but this time, she recognized its slither. She refused to let it paralyze her. Instead, she concentrated on her breathing, recalling Dagger's counsel on harnessing adrenaline. She conjured the vipers, their sneering visages, their attempts to intimidate. And then she envisioned herself, standing resolute, unyielding. A new resolve hardened in her eyes. This was no longer solely about her. It was about the hounds, about the ethos they embodied, an ethos she now carried within her. She wouldn't merely be protected. She would stand with them. Patch, observing her, nodded slowly. There you go, little sister, he murmured, a glint of approval in his eyes. That's the look I like to see. Lily squared her shoulders, her stance wider, more firmly rooted. The fear lingered, a faint echo, but it no longer dictated her. She was in command, and for the first time, she truly grasped what it meant to fight, not just with her fists, but with her spirit. The viper's aggression, far from breaking her, was forging her into something more formidable, something unbreakable. The ripples she had created were swelling into waves, and she was ready to ride them. The school gate guardians, the morning sun, usually a comforting presence, felt like a spotlight as Lily approached the school gates. The air thrummed with an unfamiliar tension, a subtle shift that made the usual chatter of students sound brittle. She clutched her backpack straps, her knuckles white. Yesterday's ride had been exhilarating, a defiant roar against fear. But today, facing the everyday battlefield of school, a different kind of apprehension coiled in her stomach. Then she saw them. Parked strategically along the curb, a line of gleaming chrome and dark leather, were the hounds. Their motorcycles, usually a symbol of wild freedom, now formed an imposing, almost ceremonial guard. Reaper, a stoic sentinel, stood beside his bike, arms crossed, his gaze sweeping the street with an almost imperceptible intensity. Dagger and Patch leaned against their machines, their expressions unreadable, yet radiating an undeniable presence. Even a few other hounds, faces she was starting to recognize from the clubhouse, were scattered among them, creating an unbroken perimeter. A ripple of whispers spread through the arriving students, heads turned, eyes wide, with a mixture of curiosity and apprehension. Lily felt her cheeks flush, but a flicker of something else ignited within her. A warmth, a sense of belonging. This wasn't about intimidation. It was about unwavering support. She walked towards them, her stride gaining a measure of confidence with each step. As she drew closer, Reaper's eyes met hers, and a faint, almost imperceptible nod was all the acknowledgement she received. But it was enough. It was everything. Morning, kid, Dagger rumbled, his voice low enough not to carry beyond their immediate vicinity. He offered a slight smirk, his eyes twinkling. Figured we'd escort you to class. Heard the Vipers have a thing for morning assemblies? Patch, ever the pragmatist, added, just a precaution, Lilybug. Don't want any unexpected welcomes. Lily swallowed, her gaze sweeping over the familiar faces, each one a testament to their loyalty. Thank you, she managed, her voice a little steadier than she expected. It means a lot. As she walked past them, heading towards the main entrance, the hounds fell in behind her. It wasn't a parade, more like a protective formation. Reaper took point, his broad shoulders a formidable shield. Dagger and Patch flanked her, their presence a silent assertion of their commitment. The other hounds followed, creating a moving wall of denim and leather. The whispers intensified, but this time they weren't about Lily alone. They were about them. The hounds, the legendary biker gang, at the school gates. The spectacle was enough to deter any casual troublemaker, and even the usual school bullies seemed to shrink into the background, their bravado evaporating under the collective gaze of the bikers. Inside the school, the atmosphere was equally charged. Teachers peered from classroom doors, their expressions a mix of concern and grudging admiration. The principal, Mr. Henderson, a man usually unflappable, stood rigid by his office door, his face a mask of bewildered authority. Reaper stopped just inside the main hall, signaling for the others to halt. He turned to Lily, his expression softening slightly. "You good from here?" Lily looked around. The familiar hallways, usually a source of anxiety, now felt different, empowered. She wasn't just walking through them, she was striding. She nodded, a genuine smile gracing her lips. "I'm good, Reaper. Thank you." As the hounds began to peel away, melting back towards the exit, Lily noticed a group of students huddled near a locker. Among them, she recognized some of the Viper's younger associates, their faces pale, and their usual swagger replaced by a nervous apprehension. Their eyes, darting between Lily and the retreating hounds, held a newfound respect, a flicker of something akin to fear. The sight ignited a spark of satisfaction within her. Not a cruel triumph, but a quiet affirmation of her progress. She wasn't just being protected. She was becoming a force to be reckoned with. The hounds hadn't just guarded the gate. They had stood as guardians of her burgeoning courage, allowing her to realize the power she now carried within herself. Later that afternoon, as the final bell shrilled, the hounds were waiting again. This time, they weren't just a presence. They were a celebration. A small crowd of students had gathered, watching them with a mixture of awe and excitement. As Lily emerged, Dagger gave a booming laugh, throwing an arm around her shoulder. "Looks like you survived another day, kiddo." Patch handed her a small, intricately carved wooden bird, a tiny hawk with outstretched wings. "For your backpack," he said, a rare softness in his voice. "A reminder." Lily held the bird, its smooth wood warm against her palm. It was a tangible symbol of her journey, of the strength she was cultivating, and of the unwavering support of her unconventional family. The Viper skirmishes and public confrontations had ignited a fire in her, and the hound's constant presence was fanning the flames, shaping her into the brave girl she had always yearned to be. She was no longer just the shy girl who asked for help. She was the girl who, with her hounds behind her, was ready to stand her ground. An artist's courage. The familiar perfume of oil paints and turpentine, usually a balm to Lily's spirit, and an echo of her earliest memories, was today merely a faint undercurrent to the anxious flutter in her stomach. Her art class, once a haven, now felt like a gladiatorial arena. Mrs. Davison, her kind instructor, had announced the annual school art competition. Its theme, My World. Though Lily typically thrived on such open prompts, a new weight pressed upon her. This wasn't just for herself. She sketched without purpose, her charcoal dancing across the page, forming abstract swirls rather than her usual vibrant scenes. Reaper's gravelly voice played in her mind. "Courage ain't just about throwing punches, kid. It's about standing tall, even when your knees shake." Dagger's additional wisdom followed. "And letting your true colors show, even if they ain't what folks expect." A shadow fell across her desk. Cassandra, ringleader of the Viper's younger set, stood there, flanked by her usual entourage of sycophants. Their sneering expressions seemed sharper than any sharpened pencil. "Look who thinks she's an artist now," Cassandra drawled, her voice a sickly sweet simulation. "Bet your biker buddies will beat up the judges if you don't win." Lily's grip tightened on her charcoal stick, a faint tremor running through her arm. In the past, she would have cowered, her eyes fixed on her desk. Not today. She met Cassandra's gaze, a ghost of old fears still, present but eclipsed by a new, resolute glint. "I don't need anyone to win for me," she stated, her voice steady despite being softer than intended. "My art speaks for itself." Cassandra scoffed, her eyes flicking to Lily's sketchbook. "Sure it does. Probably just pictures of big, scary bikes and ugly tattoos." Her cronies snickered. Lily's jaw clenched. She drew a deep breath, recalling Patch's calming voice from their meditation sessions. Center yourself, Lily. Let the noise fade. She pushed away the impulse to lash out, focusing instead on the image coalescing in her mind, a dynamic, untamed swirl of vivid colors. You wouldn't understand, she replied, turning back to her sketch. The simple dismissal was more effective than any retort. Cassandra's face flushed crimson, a clear sign her barbs had missed their target. With a frustrated huff, she steered her group away, but not before deliberately jostling Lily's desk, sending a fresh charcoal stick clattering to the floor. Lily simply retrieved it, a small, knowing smile playing on her lips. They hadn't truly unsettled her. That evening, at the Hounds clubhouse, the garage hummed with its familiar symphony of metal and machinery. Lily sat at a workbench, not sketching, but meticulously cleaning her art supplies. Reaper watched her, a half-smile etched on his grizzled face. Trouble in paradise, little artist, he rumbled, handing her a freshly cleaned wrench. Lily sighed, polishing a paintbrush with a soft cloth. Cassandra tried to get under my skin today, about the art competition. And did she succeed? Dagger asked, wiping grease from his hands with a rag. Lily shook her head. No, not really. I mean, it still bothers me, but I didn't let it stop me. I just kept thinking about what you all say, about being brave and showing who I am. She paused, then looked up, her eyes bright. I decided what I'm going to paint. Patch, usually quiet, leaned in. Tell us. Lily took a deep breath. My world. It's you guys, and the bikes, and the rides. The way I feel when I'm with you, strong and free. But also, the fear I used to have, and how it's changing. It's going to be really colorful, with lots of movement. A quiet hum of approval rippled through the gathered hounds. Reaper nodded slowly. Sounds like a masterpiece, kid. Over the next few days, Lily poured herself into her painting. The canvas became a vibrant tapestry of her unfolding journey. Bold strokes of crimson and gold embodied the hounds, their bikes a streaking blur of chrome and raw power. Against this backdrop, a smaller, almost translucent figure of a girl, initially pale and tentative, began to radiate with increasingly vivid hues of sapphire and emerald, reaching out, no longer recoiling. She depicted the wind on her face, the resonant rumble of an engine beneath her, the laughter shared around a crackling campfire, and the quiet determination now evident in her own eyes. The day of the art competition arrived, a whirlwind of nervous energy. Lily carried her framed painting into the school gymnasium, transformed for the exhibition. Her heart hammered a rhythm against her ribs that could rival a revving engine. She placed her artwork on an easel, stepping back to absorb it. It was raw, honest, undeniably hers. As students and teachers mingled, admiring the various pieces, Lily saw Cassandra and her group approach. Cassandra's eyes narrowed as she took in Lily's painting. Her jaw dropped slightly. The familiar sneer vanished, replaced by a look of genuine surprise, perhaps even grudging admiration. The vibrant, fearless depiction of the hounds and the girl's transformation was undeniable. Wow, one of Cassandra's friends whispered, genuinely impressed. Cassandra quickly recovered, forcing a smirk. Still just bikes, she muttered, but the conviction was gone from her voice. The sting was absent. Lily simply offered a small, confident smile. She didn't need their validation. Her art, her courage, spoke for itself, and it was a roar, viral inspiration. The art competition's awards ceremony passed in a haze of camera flashes and polite applause. Lily, still disoriented by her unexpected win, gripped the modest gift certificate to a local art supply store. Cassandra, oddly muted, offered a clipped congratulations before melting into the crowd. Lily, however, barely registered her rival's swift exit, her gaze drawn to the back of the auditorium. There, the hounds, a formidable human wall of leather and denim, radiated silent approval, a prize more valuable than any ribbon. Once the last art enthusiast had scattered, the hounds enveloped Lily in a triumphant chorus. That's our girl! Howler's booming voice, accompanied by a hearty clap, nearly knocked her off balance. Ghost, ever the quiet observer, offered a rare, genuine smile. You painted more than just a canvas, Lily. You painted a destiny. Later that evening at the clubhouse, the celebration hummed, with classic rock and clinking glasses. Perched on a stool, Lily recounted her painting's creation, detailing the fear she'd battled and the unexpected wellspring of courage she'd tapped. The hounds listened intently, their faces etched with a blend of pride and understanding. Always knew you had it in you, kid, Viper rumbled. nudging a plate of greasy fries her way. "We just helped you unlock it." Lily's laugh, freer and more authentic than ever, filled the air. "You didn't just give me a key, you gave me a whole new horizon." The days that followed brought an unforeseen whirlwind. A local reporter, captivated by the tale of a shy artist and her unconventional biker mentors, featured Lily and her artwork on the evening news. The heartwarming segment of transformation and improbable friendship quickly went viral. Soon, calls flooded the Warrior Clubhouse from national media, art galleries, even a literary agent eyeing a book deal. Overwhelmed, Lily retreated to her sketchbook, the only space where the sudden surge of attention didn't feel like a tsunami. She began sketching the hounds, each stroke capturing their rugged authenticity and unwavering loyalty. She found solace in the familiar contours of their weathered faces, the intricate tattoos that spun silent narratives. One afternoon, as she sketched Ghost by the roaring fireplace, he spoke, his voice a low rumble. "The vipers have noticed, Lily." Her hand froze. The name, a serpent's hiss, sent a familiar shiver down her spine. In the glow of her recent success, she'd almost forgotten them. "Noticed what?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Everything," Ghost replied, his usually impassive eyes holding an unreadable flicker. "Your bravery, your art, the spotlight. They don't tolerate hounds shining too brightly." A cold knot tightened in Lily's stomach. She recalled their taunting stares, their thinly veiled threats. Cassandra's spiteful words, she now realized, had been merely a prelude. This felt different. This was a direct gauntlet thrown at the hounds, and by extension, at her. Her initial instinct was to shrink, to vanish, to wish away the spotlight that now felt like a target. But then she glanced at her sketchbook, at Ghost's unfinished portrait, his gaze unwavering, resolute. She thought of the hounds, who had taught her to stand tall, to fight. She thought of her painting, a testament to her journey from apprehension to liberation. "What do we do?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly, yet firm. Ghost offered a rare, almost imperceptible smile. "We keep writing, Lily, and we keep inspiring. That's our strongest defense." The next morning, Lily awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. Fear lingered, a faint echo in the recesses of her mind, but it no longer paralyzed her. Instead, it fueled a quiet determination. She resolved to use her newfound platform not just to exhibit her art, but to narrate her story, to inspire others who felt adrift or afraid. She launched a blog, a hesitant venture at first, sharing her experiences, her struggles, and her triumphs. She posted photos of her artwork, alongside candid shots of her with the hounds, riding winding country roads, sharing meals, simply existing together. She wrote about the strengths she discovered in their unconventional family, the lessons they imparted about courage, resilience, and self-acceptance. The blog quickly gained traction, resonating with a diverse audience. People from all walks of life, from shy teenagers to seasoned professionals, found inspiration in Lily's journey. Her message was simple yet profound. Bravery isn't the absence of fear, but the victory over it. And sometimes, the most unexpected allies can illuminate your path. One afternoon, as Lily drafted a new post, an alert popped up on her screen. It was a comment on her latest entry, an anonymous message. "The vipers are watching your little show, girl. Don't think your newfound friends can shield you from real trouble." Lily's breath hitched. The fear, sharp and visceral, surged back. She closed her laptop, her hands clammy. This wasn't just an online threat, it felt personal, a direct challenge to her and everything she had built. The vipers weren't just watching, they were circling. The road ahead, she knew, would be far from smooth. But looking around, the familiar, comforting chaos of the clubhouse, she also knew she wouldn't be riding alone. The brave smile. The community center's fluorescent lights hummed with a sterile drone, bathing the crowded hall in an uninviting glow. Perched on a high stool before a blank canvas, Lily's hands trembled with a familiar pre-performance jitters. This wasn't a contest, not precisely. It was a live painting demonstration, a highlight of the local art festival, and the collective gaze of the onlookers felt far more potent than any judging panel. Her hounds family, a formidable phalanx of leather and denim, anchored the rear of the room, their unwavering presence a bulwark against the rising tide of her apprehension. She dipped her brush into a swirling pool of crimson, the pungent aroma of oil paint, a comforting anchor. her subject for the evening. A solitary wolf, its head thrown back in a stylized howl at a crescent moon, its fur rendered in a tapestry of grays and deep blues. It marked a distinct departure from her usual vibrant, intricately detailed works, a raw, almost primeval image that echoed a nascent strength stirring within her. As the wolf's eye coalesced, a piercing amber, Lily felt a profound shift. The tremor in her fingers receded, replaced by a laser-like focus. The audience, a blend of curious locals and avid art enthusiasts, seemed to dissolve, leaving only the canvas and the rhythmic sweep of her hand. When she finally stepped back, the wolf appeared to spring from the linen, its silent lament mirroring the courage she was striving to embody. A ripple of applause began to spread, swelling into a sustained ovation. She offered a small, hesitant smile, genuinely taken aback by the warmth of the reception. It was then her gaze snagged on a peculiar pocket of stillness near the entrance. 5 figures, uniformly clad in black leather, their jackets conspicuously devoid of the hound's familiar insignia, watched her with an unsettling intensity. Vipers. The air in the room seemed to condense, the celebratory atmosphere briefly eclipsed by a palpable tension. Later, at the hound's clubhouse, the victory celebration was in full swing, yet the spectral image of the vipers clung to Lily's mind like a persistent ache. Rooster, his arm a protective weight around her shoulders, rumbled, "Don't let those snakes slither under your skin, kid. You owned that spotlight." "I know," Lily replied, striving for a conviction she didn't quite possess. "It's just their gaze, like they wanted to dismantle me." "They crave a piece of what you've built, Lily," Daisy interjected, her voice firm. "Your bravery, your artistry, your narrative, it's galvanizing people, and that frightens them. It signifies a world in flux, and they prefer stagnation." The following morning, Lily found herself on a local talk show, a surprisingly polished set, starkly contrasting with her faintly paint-splattered hoodie. The host, a vivacious woman with an infectious laugh, introduced her as the artistic prodigy with the bikerkin. Lily, typically reserved, felt a jolt of adrenaline as the studio lights blazed. "So, Lily," the host began, "your art has truly soared. What fuels your creativity?" Lily drew a deep breath. This was her moment, her platform. "My art is about discovering your voice," she began, her tone gaining momentum with each uttered word. "It's about refusing to let fear shackle you. I once lived in constant dread, but then I found people who illuminated the truth. Courage isn't the absence of fear, but the resolute choice to confront it nonetheless." She gestured subtly towards the hounds, who beamed from the studio audience. "They instilled in me the strength to advocate for myself, to believe in my own power, and my art is the vessel through which I share that message. If I can, anyone can." The segment exploded online, eclipsing even her competition win. Her social media channels were inundated with messages, narratives of individuals inspired to pursue their aspirations, to face their own trepidations. One message, however, stood apart, an anonymous direct message. "Charming tale, but some skirmishes transcend paintbrushes. You're dicing with danger, little sister." The message was unsigned, yet Lily recognized its source, the vipers. The menace was no longer a phantom shadow. It was a poisonous whisper in her ear. She showed it to Rooster, whose jaw tightened visibly. "They're escalating, Lily. They're trying to unnerve you." "It's working," she conceded, her voice barely audible. "But it also makes me want to fight back even harder. Not with fists, but with my truest self." Rooster nodded slowly, a flicker of pride in his eyes. "That's my girl. Show them what genuine strength looks like." A few days later, a local news reporter contacted Lily, eager to produce a follow-up story on her burgeoning art career and inspiring journey. The hounds were wary, but Lily sensed an opportunity. She agreed, with one stipulation. The interview would take place at the community garden project she had initiated with some of the younger hounds members, a vibrant oasis burgeoning in a forgotten corner of town. During the interview, surrounded by a riot of verdant growth and colorful blossoms, Lily spoke of resilience, of transmuting desolate spaces into realms of beauty and sustenance. As she spoke, she observed a black van parked inconspicuously across the street, its tinted windows obscuring the occupants. The vipers. This time, Lily didn't falter. She met the camera's lens, a brave smile gracing her lips. "Just like this garden," she articulated, her voice clear and resonant. We all possess the capacity to flourish, to cultivate something exquisite, even in the most challenging conditions. It demands courage, certainly, but it's profoundly rewarding. Every single bloom. She knew they were watching, and she intended for them to witness not fear, but defiance. Her message was no longer just for the world. It was a direct challenge to them, delivered not with a roar, but with a blossoming, unwavering smile. The first small step. The familiar purr of the hound's engines, a comforting pulse against the asphalt, usually grounded Lily. Today, however, an undercurrent of tension vibrated through the air, a silent hum of anticipation. The community garden, typically a Verdant Haven, felt charged, almost a stage set for an unfolding drama. Lily had arrived early with a few of the hounds, positioning a makeshift easel amidst the tomato plants, the scent of rich earth and aromatic basil a steadying presence. She had selected a substantial canvas, a pristine surface awaiting her defiance, a white flag against the encroaching shadow. When the Viper's bikes finally materialized, a distant growl solidifying into a snarling roar, a hush descended upon the small gathering. Their dark, gleaming machines idled across the street, a stark metallic contrast to the hound's more eclectic, road-worn choppers. From the rear of the lead bike, a woman dismounted with a fluid, almost reptilian grace. Her leather vest, emblazoned with the coiled Viper insignia, hugged a physique that radiated predatory strength. Her eyes, narrowed slits beneath a fringe of dark hair, fixed on Lily. This was Vela. A shiver traced Lily's spine, a phantom echo of past anxieties. Yet, a glance at Axel's calm, resolute profile, and the reassuring weight of Ghost's hand on her shoulder, banished the unease. A surge of defiant resolve took its place. She was no longer that trembling girl. She was Lily, artist, hound, and she would not be cowed. Vela sauntered across the street, her gaze sweeping the hounds with a dismissive sneer before returning to Lily. "So the little artist wants to tangle with the big dogs," Vela drawled, her voice a low purr laced with contempt. "Charming." Lily met her gaze unflinchingly. "I'm not tangled with the big dogs, Vela," she stated, her voice surprisingly clear and steady. "I'm growing, and this garden offers ample space for everyone who seeks purpose in their growth." Vela's eyes glittered. "Purpose, huh? Or merely a convenient shield?" She gestured pointedly at Axel and Ghost. "Still cowering behind your protectors?" Before Axel could interject, Lily stepped forward. "I stand with my chosen family," she asserted, her voice gaining resonance. "Just as they stand with me." "That's not cowering, Vela. That's solidarity." She indicated the blank canvas. "I'm here to paint, to express, to demonstrate that creation itself can be a potent weapon against destruction." A snort escaped Vela's lips. "Paint, little girl? What will you depict? Pretty blossoms? The hound's cuddly emotions?" Her companions chuckled, a low, guttural rumble. "I'm going to paint what's real," Lily countered, selecting a brush. "The enduring resilience of nature, the unyielding human spirit, concepts you wouldn't grasp." Vela's smile vanished, replaced by a cold fury. "You fancy yourself so brave, don't you, Lily? You imagine a few weeks with these overgrown pups has rendered you invincible." She took another step closer, her voice dropping to a menacing whisper. "There are some things even your family can't shield you from." The air crackled with tension. Axel and Ghost tensed, poised to intervene, but Lily raised a hand, a silent signal to stand down. This was her battle, her gauntlet. "Perhaps," Lily conceded, her gaze unwavering. "But my spirit is not something that can be broken, Vela. Nor is the spirit of this community. We are rooted here. We flourish here. We thrive here. You cannot extinguish that." Vela's eyes narrowed, searching for a chink in Lily's resolve. Finding none, a flicker of something unreadable, perhaps surprise or grudging respect, crossed her face. "We'll see about that, little artist," she finally said, her voice losing some of its earlier bite. She turned to her gang. "Let's go. She's not worth the good leather." With a final lingering glare at Lily, Vela mounted her bike. The Vipers roared to life, a cacophony of engines that momentarily swallowed the gentle sounds of the garden. They peeled away, leaving behind a lingering scent of exhaust, and a silence that felt heavier than before. A collective sigh of relief rippled through the hounds and the small crowd. Axel placed a hand on Lily's shoulder, a silent affirmation. You handled that well, kid, he murmured, a hint of pride in his voice. Lily exhaled a shaky breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Her heart still hammered, but it was a warrior's rhythm, not a rabbit's skitter. She looked at the blank canvas, then at the vibrant garden surrounding her. The fear was gone, replaced by a burning certainty. She dipped her brush into a vibrant green, the first stroke a bold declaration against the stark white. This was merely a first small step, yet it was undeniably a step forward. The painting began to take shape, a resilient sprout pushing through cracked earth, a testament to enduring strength. Later that evening, in the comforting din of the Hounds clubhouse, the mood was celebratory. The confrontation had been diffused, not by aggression, but by Lily's unwavering courage. "You stared her down, Lilybug," Bones cheered, raising a bottle of root beer. "Like a true hound." Lily smiled, a genuine, radiant expression. "I just remembered what you all taught me," she said, surveying her unconventional family. "That real strength isn't about being fearless. It's about facing your fears anyway." She paused, a thoughtful expression on her face, "and about having people who believe in you, even when you're not sure you believe in yourself." Axel nodded, his gaze soft. "You've always possessed that strength, Lily. We just helped you unearth it." The conversation shifted to the implications of Vela's appearance. "They're probing," Ghost mused, polishing a silver charm, "testing the boundaries. But they witnessed something today, Lily. They saw you holding your ground." A flicker of concern crossed Lily's face. "What now?" Axel leaned forward. "Now, we persist. We don't retreat. We continue cultivating the garden, continue painting, continue demonstrating that we're not going anywhere. And you, Lily, you keep shining." He clapped her on the shoulder. "Today was a significant victory, kid. A truly big win." Lily looked around the room, at the worn faces and rough edges that had become her anchors. She was no longer just a timid girl. She was a force, an artist, a vital thread in something bigger than herself. The vipers might still cast a shadow, but Lily knew, with a certainty that resonated deep within her, that her light and the light of her hound's family would always blaze brighter.